Hello and welcome to the Ballymaloe Festival of Food podcast. I'm Brie Allen, organiser of the festival, and in the lead up to May we're sitting down with some of the wonderful cooks, writers and producers who will be joining us this year. Ballymaloe has always been about celebrating real food, real craft and the people behind it. It's about hospitality, generosity and passing knowledge on. These conversations are a chance to explore the stories behind the plates before we gather together in East Cork.
Thanks, Brie. And hi, everyone. I'm Jolene Cronin. I am so delighted to be co-hosting this with Brie for the series. Now, in my day job, I am not a podcaster. I'm actually a photographer. And so I'm always drawn to how food, it's not just cooked, but how it's seen and how it's told visually. And that's why I've been really looking forward to today's conversation. Who have we got, Brie?
Well, today we are delighted to be joined by Cherie Denham, the cook and writer behind the recipes in the beautiful book, The Irish Kitchen. Born in County Tyrone, trained at Leiths and later teaching at the Leiths School of Food and Wine, Cherie has worked as a private cook, cookery demonstrator and teacher and now cookbook writer. She developed and cooked every single recipe herself, rooted in the food traditions of Northern Ireland and developed by her experiences in kitchens both at home and abroad.
I happen to have the book here in my hand because alongside the recipes, this book was so beautifully photographed by Andrew Montgomery. It's shot almost entirely on location, right across the country, in real kitchens, and I'm guessing probably very real weather as well. And it captures not just dishes, but landscape, memory, and the warmth of the heart of an Irish home. As someone who works with images kind of every day of the week, I really have to say it's just absolutely gorgeous. Cherie, you're so welcome. We're delighted to have you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. And I'm delighted that you love the book.
It's just gorgeous. I nearly cuddle it. Well, it's beautiful. I want to start here. Like, when you think back to the kitchen that you grew up in County Tyrone, what are the things that you remember?
You know, I remember the floor always being cold, right? And I remember whenever Mummy would always be working at night time because she worked in the hospital as a night sister. So she often wouldn't have been there in the morning, so it would be hectic. So the four of us girls would be in there making our own breakfast. The dog would be running around. Daddy would be getting his porridge ready for the morning to go up to the farm. You know, it was just always hustle and bustle, and there was always people coming in as well. Like there'd be people helping Daddy up on the farm, so they'd be coming in, and it was just busy, always busy, and like always chats going on, you know.
That is so beautiful. Yeah, I can almost kind of like hear the hustle and bustle. And you grew up on a farm, was it?
Yeah, so yeah, we weren't in the farmhouse. We lived in a bungalow down the road. My granny Marcia lived up in the farmhouse with my auntie Evelyn. So we would always be helping out in the farm, whether it be moving the cows, whether it be, you know, doing the hay bales, moving pigs. We would be doing it all from no age, from wee tots, like we would be doing the whole lot. And so Daddy was pigs and cows, and there were some chickens there as well. And then, of course, the ducks. Mummy loved making sponges, sometimes with duck eggs.
Oh, gorgeous. How many kids were in the family?
Four
Four
girls.
of you. And where do you come in at?
I'm the youngest.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the most spoiled as well?
Well, I wouldn't have. I don't know. I don't think so. I think it was all very equal. Yeah, I was definitely. We were all well looked after, and we all, you know, it was basically a bit of stretch or starve in the house because Daddy was in the farm, Mommy was, you know, away. So we all basically fended for ourselves, you know.
Yeah. And did you always have a love of food then from the kitchen? Is that where it came from?
You know, I honestly, I think it was from seeing not necessarily cooking with grannies at all or anything like that. It was seeing what they produced on the table. My Granny Neil was a great baker. She lived in County Armagh. She made fresh bread every week, nearly every day, for all the family who lived around there. She and Aunt Maisie always did the preserves. Whatever was in the garden or whatever was on the trees, you know, the damsons. And Mummy said that whenever she was younger, she remembers them going down to the bog and getting wild raspberries and this sort of thing, and they'd make the jam out of that as well. So it was always like, it wasn't for the whole foraging aspect of it. It was done because it needed to be done, because they needed food for during the winter. Do you know what I mean? And I think with Granny Marcia then, who lived in County Tyrone, she would have always done, she had like gooseberries in her garden, and she had red currants and black currants and things like that. So she had different fruits and did different things. But this, I think it's the smell as well. You know, going into those kitchens and smelling black currant jam being made and smelling the bread coming out of the oven. And Granny loved a gas oven. And when she got Granny Neil, and when she got older, and the boys in the family said to her, "Listen, Mum, maybe it would be safer if you used an electric oven." And she said, so they put the gas oven out in the shed. So Granny kept walking out into the shed to put her bread in the gas oven because she said the electric oven dried it out too much. They're all like, "Mummy, don't use the one." And then they thought that they would, take the gas off it. So then she got the gas put back on it. So anyway, they realised lost cause, and Granny was always going to use it. And she used her own griddle as well on the gas, to make her soda farls and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it was those smells. And also then whenever I was a brownie, they, for your cookery badge, they wanted
A brownie as in a Girl Guide, or a brownie as in as a little chocolate cake?
No, a brownie as in a Girl Guide.
Okay, sorry. There are people who are like, "What is she talking about? I was a brownie one time."
I'm so sorry.
Go on. What happened to you when you were a brownie? I was a brownie too.
I'm brown eyed for your cookery badge. She loved my scrambled eggs on toast, and I thought I was the girl. Like, and they had to cut the crusts off, which went very much against the grain because nothing was ever wasted in our house. So, and then you scrambled egg, and I loved that whole thing of someone really liking my food. And I thought, this is great. I was only about 7 at the time, But I think that's where it all came from.
Gorgeous. Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm almost like sitting back in that kitchen at that time with you. It's amazing how like these early kitchens and these food memories, they just shape so much of our life, like after it. So like, it's interesting how, I'm particularly talking about with this book, like while you were building your life in food, Andrew, who's your co-creator and photographer and published this book, he was creating his own path in photography. And I'd like to kind of bring him into the story because he was discovering Ireland through music and then cycling with his camera, and that was in his 20s. But you guys hadn't met at all. Like, you were totally working completely separately. And then when we were chatting on the phone the other day, you told me about this amazing moment that happened on Instagram. Can you bring us back to that photograph, that conversation, and what actually happened and how you guys came together?
Andrew Montgomery, I have always loved Andrew's work, and to me he's got such a talent, and I always loved the fact that he could make the food speak for itself. And so I was following him on Instagram, and then he posted this thing because he loves Ireland. He's an Essex boy, but he's got Ireland running through his veins, and we don't know how, but he definitely has. And Andrew posted this picture of the cliffs and the rain on the car window and the sea. And it just said to me, it was like the time, and I commented on his picture. I said, this just reminds me of being on the North Antrim coast in a wee fishing harbour, and the mackerel had come off the boats, and we had warm wheaten bread and freshly grilled mackerel in this wee cafe in Ballymaloe Harbour, and it was just lovely. And anyway, he said he looked through all his comments, but there was just something about that one comment. So he went onto my Instagram and started to scroll through my Instagram and look to see what I had done. And he could see loads of Irish bakes and breads and cakes and all this sort of thing. And he messaged me and he said, thanks very much for your comments. And I said, look, if I ever had the chance to do a cookery book, I would love someone like you to do the photography. And I says, but I know that's a pipe dream. But I said, I love your work and I love how you make the food speak for itself. And he said, oh, thanks very much. And then a couple of weeks later, he said, listen, would you be interested in doing an Irish baking book? And I was like, oh my word, I've never done anything like that before. I don't know if I could. I've done some recipes for magazines, but that's about it. And I completely flustered. And it's complete imposter syndrome because, I just didn't think that I was good enough for the job. And he said to me, look, all you have to do is put the food in front of me and I'll do the rest. He said, the camera doesn't lie. And I said to him, will I be doing all of the food for the books? Because I didn't realise that cookery books a lot of the time are done by home economists. I honestly was very green about that. I didn't realise they were ghostwritten or anything like that. And he said, we're going to be doing everything, just the two of us. And I said, brilliant, because I would like my own food in the book. So when I say I put the food in front of Andrew and he does the rest, that's exactly what I mean. Andrew styles it and everything. And if it's not right, it goes back and we do it again and again and again until it is right. In the Baked Alaska in the Irish kitchen, we did 7 times.
Jeepers.
because he said that the peak wasn't right on the meringue, and he was absolutely right.
Yeah.
The first time it just looked like a hedgehog, my individual baked Alaskas, and they kept going back and back, and I'm like, this is a low moment. At the end of it, he said, we've got it. And I says, Andrew, I'm not joking. I have never been so close to tears on any of our shoots. And we never fell out. We never had a bad word. Honestly, for two people who never knew each other, it's been just fantastic. He's great. He's just
That's
great. And he's a great
amazing.
friend.
Yeah, what brilliant kind of like creative chemistry that kind of brings, because you're pushing yourselves, or both of you are pushing yourselves and your skills like to make something collaborative and amazing. Like, and I think that's really interesting as well, like about how the memories that you both have are so completely different, but they have that kind of co-joining force together. Like, it's gorgeous. Um,
Yes. I mean, he's got this thing about he loves Achill. So we went to Achill Island and did the sheep show there, and that's where we shot the Guinness scones there in the lashing rain. When I my Instagram, I've got a behind the scenes, and so is Andrew on his. And we did this whole behind the scenes of making of the book. And when you look at the picture in the book, you think, oh, that's lovely. They're in an old tin and all the rest. They were in an old tin by an old boat on Achill Island with me standing there with a towel up beside Andrew so the camera wouldn't get wet. It was just, honestly, when I think of the things we did, and the two of us say, like, both books, how do we get through that? So, but it was great. It was a real experience to shoot the books on location. It really was. But of course, I didn't know any different. Do you know what I
mm,
mean?
yeah,
But you can
yeah,
see in the books, 100% you can see in the books, the passion, just talking to you, like the passion behind the
Oh,
photographs, and every photograph and every recipe tells that story. And you can hear your voice and I think his voice in the photographs. It's such a beautiful book. Like it's
yeah,
really had their
thank you
league of its
so
own.
yeah.
honestly,
It's
thank you.
gorgeous.
And Andrew really wanted to be here this morning to talk to you guys. He really did. And he said, oh, Cherie, I can't. And he had to be somewhere else. And he
That's
discussed,
all right. When I meet Andrew, I will burn his ear.
he will love it. He will love it. He loves it, Jan. And that's the thing. Andrew, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. You can take it out afterwards. But Andrew and I were powered by Barry's tea the whole way around, right? Because he loves a cup of tea. So
Gorgeous.
I bought it, ended up buying him a thermos mug because he'd stop off everywhere and get tea all the time. I said, Andrew, if we're going to stop all the time, we'll never get anywhere around Ireland. We have to keep going. So I had a thermos flask. I'm a Barry's tea. I'm just made it as we went along.
That's gorgeous. Yeah, I can see how Barry's tea would definitely power your journey. I think really an important thing about this book as well is that you didn't want to bring it across as this like really diddly eye twee kind of kitsch
Yeah.
picture postcard image of Ireland. You really wanted to kind of have that authenticity. What does that look like for you?
Rain.
Exactly.
Sorry, I am not joking. There were times we were foundered, absolutely foundered going around, but we got through it. I think Andrew said to me, look, I want the book to be traditional. I want it to be real. I want it to be authentic, but I don't want it to look twee. I don't want it all to be, like
Did
exactly that. And he said, I need the stories. He says, because Andrew published it as well, obviously. So he said, I'd love a story for every recipe, but I want the stories to be genuine. And so anything that you can remember from your childhood, do that. And my sisters are like, don't be sure, I can't believe you remember that. I can't remember that. And it's only now that you've written that and I'm reading it that I can think, oh, flip me, that actually did happen. And I says, maybe I was just always obsessed by food. Maybe it's just my pure greed. But I think I was always obsessed by food. He also said, I said to him, look, Andrew, it can't be all from, like, I haven't got to 100 and then another 100 recipes from my childhood. I just don't. So I said, what about whenever my husband, I'm married to an Englishman. I live over in Hampshire. We often brought the boys home when they were wee, to see around and everything. And so it was a lot to do with that as well. The food I wanted them to try whenever we were at home, the places I wanted them to see. I wanted them to see all around the Wild Atlantic Way. I wanted them to go up to the North Antrim coast. I wanted them to taste the fish and the shellfish and the homemade breads. And, I thought that was part of their heritage and they had to do it. And, even now I'll make breads for our Felix, the middle boy, when he's going back to university, and I'll slice them all up. He'll put them in his freezer when he gets back there and he says, Mummy, it's lovely, it's just a bit of home. And I'm like, I've done my job.
Yeah, Well, there is something really powerful about giving your children that food memory of home, even if
Yes,
it's actually not reality. But there's something really special about my kids all talk about my mother-in-law's brown soda bread, and they
yes.
walk into the home, their home, the family home, and there's this smell of brown soda bread. And it doesn't matter where they are in the world, as soon as they smell that, it brings them back to Hazel. So that's, yeah,
Yes,
it's a really special thing to do for your children, I think.
it is, and I think it gives them a sense of place as well. And I think there's it sounds ridiculous, but it's like a food security almost type thing. They come in and if they're making themselves a breakfast in a different place, they'll smell that smell and just know, do you know what? That's just like home and it's a happy memory.
Yeah,
And I
give
think
safety and security for them.
that's it. Exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's lovely. Did you ever feel like a pressure in any way to kind of create something that was a bit more of this nostalgic stereotype at any
Oh,
point? Did you feel that that was a pull or an obligation in any way?
do you know, I never felt it was an obligation, but I felt I had to, sounds a bit over the top, doesn't it? But honor the food of Ireland. But look, there's been so many brilliant people and chefs. I'm definitely a cook. I am definitely a home cook. I only did 3 months at cookery school, and I paid for myself to go through it, and that's why I only did 3 months because I couldn't afford anymore. So, whenever I did that, and then I went off into different bits and pieces and cooked around, ski chalets, and for people in their summer homes and stuff like that. It was definitely more cooking, I thought, than chefing for me. So I wanted to really make that whole thing of the Irish cooking, like the boiled bacon and cabbage and, the beef and Guinness casserole and all those and fish pie but I wanted the stories, sort of my introductions, to really talk about that and to tell people where all those came from.
Mm.
Because Andrew says, this book could go further than just Ireland, Cherie, we need to talk about it. And now we're selling to over 30 countries. So it's
Beautiful.
just brilliant it's brilliant for us, but we're not on Amazon. We're very independent and that sort of thing. So
Yeah. Yeah, so you guys self-published this book, didn't you?
yes,
Or yeah, through Montgomery Press. Yeah, I think that's really interesting, that those kind of conscious decisions to create something that's authentic, like. And also what I love is the stories that you brought in there and the people that you met along the way.
yes.
And you've told us about like that journey around Ireland. Why was it so important to actually do it this way? Because as you said, it's the complete opposite of how anyone else with a brain would do a book.
Story. Yeah.
I'm joking. This is no, 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 no. I'm actually so jealous that you did this. It's
Oh,
amazing.
sounds like an amazing trip.
But I'd love to know, like, what was that typical day like? How long did it take you? What was the journey like? How was there ever anything that went completely wrong? Was there days that just went totally right? What was that whole journey like shooting?
Look, see, I said to Andrew, I said, every time before we do a shoot, I get really nervous and I can't eat and I can't. And it's not because he's scary or anything. So, sorry, Brie, were you going to say something there?
It's even the fact that you were traveling and making the food as you were going. Because as you said, your grandmother used the same oven and the bread didn't work unless it was
Yeah.
coming out of her gas oven.
Listen,
I know for a fact that I can't make soda bread in anything but my agar at home because it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So that alone blows me away.
Yeah. I have
this
so many questions about that, because even how do you create the style that's cohesive? Like, tell us everything.
the stress, I cannot tell you the stress. Honestly, that's why I couldn't eat. I was like nervous all the time. So, and my mummy's oven's only got one shelf in it, right? So I was like trying to do things in there and then would go to someone else's house. And then I'll not say where it was, but we went to this place to do a shoot. And Andrew says to me, right, okay, this has to be done, this has to be done, this has to be done. And if we line them up, and then I'll take them to the main house and we'll get it sorted out. Right, okay. So I said, but this is by tomorrow, yeah? And he goes, yeah. And I said, okay, we're cooking on an aga. I've got an aga at home and I've got an electric oven, but so I was felt grand about the alga, but the alga wasn't up to temperature.
Yeah. Agas are not agas. Agas have a personality all of their own.
So true. Oh my word, Brie, so true. And whenever I went in, I'm thinking, there's no heat coming out of this alga. And I says, Andrew, there's no heat. And he says, well, I don't know. And he doesn't cook. He says, well, I don't know. So I was looking all around where the workings of the alga. I opened up the bottom door where mine is, no workings of the Aga. I'm thinking, where's the temperature gauge? Oh my gracious. Yeah, so I stood against this cupboard at the side and I put my hand on it like that, and I put my hand up to my head, and in a Scooby-Doo moment, the cupboard moved. Do you know what I mean? It's like a secret cupboard moved. So I said, Andrew, they're here. So we flipping whacked it right up, got the whole thing started, got it all reared up, and got it going. Thank goodness. So throughout the night, I kept checking it to make sure, and it was working and was all good. So we had that. We also went to a place where there was just a tiny wee oven, like also we worked off a camping stove. I worked off a camping stove as well. We went to lovely Glyn Castle, which was just fantastic. Catherine Fitzgerald was just brilliant with us, and Andrew has taken photographs there before, so a lot of the places we went to, Andrew had photographed these people before. And so that's how we knew about Catherine. And then she very kindly got us into the pub O'Shaughnessy's in Glyn. So we've asked if we can do a couple of recipe shots in the pub. Yes, not a problem. And we went in, and they were just lovely there. They were so welcoming. And I loved the fact that that pub was like a meeting hub for people. They could go at 10:30 in the morning, have a coffee if they wanted. If they didn't want to drink at all, they didn't. But it was for the community, because they said there were loads of things for women in the community, but there weren't many things for men. So they would all meet up there. So when they left at 2:30, this was my chance to get cooking, right? And I says, Andrew, there's no kitchen. And he says, what do you mean there's no kitchen? I says, just what I'm saying, there's no kitchen. And he says, well, what am I going to do? And I says, well, the oysters are grand. So lovely Kane from Carlingford Oysters had sent the oysters down to me at Glyn, so that was fine. We got that all sorted out. It was a cold mignonette to go over the top, but it was scallops, and it was a pea puree with broad beans. So I said, Andrew says, what are you going to do? And I says, well, we may stoke up the fire. So we stoked up the fire and cooked the whole thing. The recipe shot on the fire, and it was beautiful. Do you know what? The light of the fire going through the pub, this lovely wee old quaint pub, and the smell of the scallops, and just bit by bit doing everything. Honestly, it was just brilliant. It was lovely, and I'm so glad it happened that way. I'm so glad there wasn't a kitchen, because it was lovely to be able to do that, you know. So yeah, there were definitely challenges. And we had loads of, like, the weather was a challenge as well a lot of the time. And we went through Storm Éowyn. So we were up in North Antrim Coast when Storm Éowyn hit. So we were doing a shoot there. All the electricity went out. There was no heating in the house we stayed in. It all... Do you know what? When you look back at it now, you can have a bit of a laugh about it, but at the time it wasn't very funny.
It's quite stressful, right?
Yeah, and we went through, on the way back through Storm Éowyn, after we had it all sorted, we went through rain and hail and frost and then snow to get me back to City Airport in Belfast, because I always fly over and Andrew always goes by boat. He brings over all the kit, and he just loves, he would go to Ireland at any opportunity, honestly.
And how long did it take you to shoot the book?
2 years, shipped them, 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's an extraordinary amount of research and work, and even just hearing you talk about the shoot, it's so beautiful. You've got a wonderful way with words. Like, it's mesmerizing listening to you. We've got loads of questions to ask. I'm like, just keep talking.
And I keep talking too much too, so reel me in.
No, this is gorgeous. I feel like I'm on that journey, and it's so lovely to be able to give it the time and the space and the capacity that you did. That's such a rare treat, and well done. You deserve all the credit for it.
Thank
And
you.
You got a couple of awards as well, didn't you guys?
For the Irish Bakery, yes, we
Yeah.
did. We got the Irish Cookbook of the Year, which was huge for Andrew and I. I mean, just we were very emotional about that. And we got the Food and Travel Book of the Year. Yeah, for 2024.
Amazing.
Thank you very much. We're up against
Amazing.
very big names all the time. Do you know what I mean? We're up against people, big publishing houses, people who are so well established. I'm not known. Andrew's known for his work, you know, because he's worked with so many amazing people. So, you know, poor Andrew took a punt on me, and but you know, it's worked so far for both of us. We've done our books, but we'll just keep going now and seeing what we can do.
Your books stand out on the shelf, though. It's the original, the photograph of the cover obviously is really outstanding, and it just pops. But then you open the book or both the books, and the stories coming through, and the recipes are so beautiful, and your personality, and obviously Andrew's, just shines through. So it is. I mean, there's some really amazing cookbooks out there, obviously, and I have one
Absolutely.
on my shelf. But your books stand out as something slightly different, and after talking to you, you can see why, because
Yeah. Well,
you shine through every page.
I think the personal stories in there, and you got was it Kitty to write that? Was it?
Kitty wrote the voice. She did the voices, and yeah, and the interviews type thing. She did the essays.
Okay, so these are like little essays, as you call them, kind of spread throughout the book, and they're people that you've met along the way. So in between your recipes, your photographs, you've got these lovely little vignettes of the people on the journey.
That's
That's
it.
what we're talking about.
Yeah, and that's all Andrew's vision. He wanted to start publishing because he wanted to do books the way he likes books. So, and I said, well, could we have a recipe for a shot, an image for every recipe? And he said, yes. For the first book, I said, we need more than one ribbon. We need two ribbons. And he says, well, I don't know. And I said, well, I think we should. And then the next book, I said, you know what, Andrew, people have loved the two ribbons. They're asking for three. And he says, seriously? Anyway, we put three ribbons in the next book, and we had all these comments. Thanks for the three ribbons. We love the three ribbons. And I said, Andrew, yeah, yeah.
That's gorgeous.
So the essays, yeah, were all interviewed by Kitty. And again, as I say, so Kitty came with us for part of the trips as well.
Brilliant.
Amazing. Right. I suppose, do you know what kind of struck me in the earlier part of the conversation was like how you kind of never thought that you'd end up here, or like, I've only been to cookery school for 3 months. Like, I'm kind of tapping into that little sense of imposter syndrome. Where do you think that came from? Do you think it came from just being Irish?
Yes, actually I do. Do you know what? I'm so much better now. I sort of believe that, I've worked so hard to get here, and I think, well, do you know what? I earned my place. But I think definitely it's like whenever you're younger, it's like who do you think you are? Don't you forget the bowl you were baked in? Like, don't be getting ahead of yourself and all this sort of stuff. But it keeps you humble, and I think it's really important to be humble. And I will clip my boys' wings as well and truly, because I think it's really important to appreciate what you have, and to be grateful. Yes, be grateful, but I want them to have some, what's the word, confidence as well. And I always had that thing that I didn't belong. I shouldn't be there with all those other people who have done these amazing pieces of work and on TV and all the rest. And then Andrew said to me, do you know what? You've earned your stripes. He said, you match me in work ethic. And he says, and I've got a very strong work ethic. And we were up, honestly, mornings, 4 o'clock in the morning. I remember leaving Achill Island at 4 o'clock in the morning to go on our next shoot. And we could see the sun coming up. We had our tea and rusks. I made rusks for us because Andrew always used to eat chocolate biscuits. And I says, you know what? They're not good for you. We'll have to try you on the rusks. And now he loves the rusks. We would drive along, and I remember thinking, do you know what? This is where it's at, and I'm so glad this is how we have made our books, because it's so different. And he said to me, do you know what Andrew said to me? Cherie, listen, I can just promise you one thing. At the end of this, he said, we're going to have, this was the Irish bakery, he said, we're going to have a beautiful book. And then he said about doing the Irish kitchen, and I says, can you promise me it's going to be another beautiful book? He says, I can. I says, okay, let's do it. So that was that. And his photographs on the front, his photographs on the front, he said, you know what? I don't want you standing on the front smiling. He said, I want a different photograph. And I said, I think that's a really good idea. And his covers are beautiful. And so many people say it.
Absolutely. Tell us about kind of like going back pre-book, when you left the north, you went to the UK, you went to Leiths to study at culinary school. What was that like, and who were the people? What kind of mentors, friends did you gain along the way, and how did they help you become the person you are now?
So yeah, I went to Leiths in London, Leiths Cookery School, and I didn't, you know what, I hadn't even heard of Ballymaloe at that point. And I had only heard of Leiths because of a couple of people who I knew who went there. And because we had no internet or anything at that point, do you know what I mean? There was no Google or anything like that. So Anyway, I went there and I actually went over as a medical secretary because I needed to earn money to go to cookery school. And I absolutely detested it. It just wasn't for me. It just wasn't for me. So I left and went, and it was a counter girl actually at a place, a tiny wee French delicatessen called Villandry. And I worked in there. And you know what? It took me probably twice as long to earn the money, but I was surrounded by food. It was the first place I ever tasted cashel blue.
Wow.
Yes. I'll never forget it.
You went all the way to England to try the Cashel Blue.
Oh, it was so lovely, and it was this lovely French that like delicatessens. And I have to tell you a story though. This woman came in and she said I would like some nougat, and I said, oh. I says, we don't have that. And she said, yes, you do. It comes in every Thursday from Paris. And she was so beautifully spoken, and I'm like, oh, I'm really sorry, I don't think we have. Anyway, I said to Jean-Charles, there's a woman downstairs and she's looking for nougat, and he says it's up on the shelf beside the chocolate. And I said, are you sure? And he said yes. So he came upstairs and he handed it to me, and I go, oh, nugget, oh yeah, we've got nugget. So I had a lot to learn, let me tell you. I'd never seen an avocado before, so we were doing like sun-dried tomato, avocado and mozzarella sandwiches. And like I sent a sandwich out of the shop, and there was this fella walking out with this bit of a skin of an avocado hanging out of his mouth, because I didn't know that you had to peel the avocados, things like that. So I had so much. So then I went to Leiths, and I had a most fantastic teacher called Fee Burrell, who was just brilliant, and she's still a mentor for me now. Absolutely wonderful. And she taught amazing people like Diana Henry. She taught Matt Tebbett, and I'll tell you,
Wow.
yes, she was just brilliant. And you know what? She took no nonsense. She ran a whole team of all women, because at that time it was all women who taught there. And she just had this most amazing knowledge. And I remember watching her demonstrations, and the knowledge that came from that woman was just incredible. And I just soaked it all up like a sponge. It was just brilliant. And talking about game, she would do her game demos, and then her pastry demos and ice creams, and things that I never knew were even possible, like making sugar syrups and things like that. I had no idea where sugar syrups had come from. When custard was at home, custard was from a tin. Where rice is from a tin. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that by any means, but to learn how to make it from scratch was I just loved it. I loved her. And she actually then started Edinburgh Cookery School, and she's just retired from there now. Amazing woman. So she worked with Prue, and was a principal at our Leiths whenever I was there.
Lovely. That's amazing. It's amazing how that time is so formative, and it just kind of like expands us so much, and it gives you real kind of permission to just step forward into who we all really are.
Yeah, and she saw that I was so keen, and she knew I couldn't do the advanced course. So she said to me, listen, Cherie, would you like to stay on as demonstration assistant for the advanced course? Okay. So I saw the whole advanced course and worked on it, as a demonstration assistant. And honestly, it was fantastic. And that was because of Fee. She can just see things in people. And whenever I was writing my books, I spoke to her about it, said, am I definitely saying the right thing? I just wanted to make sure I was telling people the right thing, and she was just brilliant.
Well, I'm delighted to hear you were a demonstration assistant, because that's really going to help out at the Ballymaloe Festival of Food. Oh, brilliant. Good news. Cherie there can hop in if we're stuck.
Definitely, for sure.
That's exactly what I thought as well. I was like, oh, Ema's going to be absolutely.
Absolutely.
With Cherie.
I'm there.
Tell us what's planned for that occasion.
Well, do you know what? Since I've done a few book events recently to promote the book, and when I was at Fortnum's, they loved the smoked haddock, spinach and chive tart. They loved that, and wee Seville orange marmalade steamed puddings. So that went down a treat. I'll tell you what else has in the book: the honey mustard thyme chicken, and underneath the skin, it's a stuffing with lemon and bacon and really soft onions and fresh breadcrumbs. So that's all really nicely fried off. The skin's all fried off, and then it's cooked in the oven with a honey and mustard glaze for 20 minutes. Take it out, put it back in with another brush, and then you make a sauce, this lovely cream sauce of tarragon. That's very nice.
Gorgeous.
And then last,
This is what you're going to be demonstrating. Is that what you're doing? Is it?
well, I'm thinking about these sorts of things. I'm not sure if it's, concrete yet, but those are what I'm thinking of.
Okay.
Amazing.
And then last night I did a demo as well, and but they wanted all the like the breads and the cakes in the book, and but they did want a fish pie last night as well. So that was lovely. I was demonstrating to a group of people at Ottolenghi's last night up in the test kitchen, and that was brilliant. It's lovely. Do you know what? They were such an enthusiastic group, and they were so invested and they were so interested, and it's lovely. I love live demos because you can really relate to people,
Yeah.
and the crack gets going then as well, and you just have lots of chats, and if they want to be involved, they can be involved. If they want to, chop up nuts or shape bread or whatever, I get them all up. I think it's great for them to do it.
There's something actually really magical. The first time I went to a cooking demonstration, it was actually in the cookery school. And they got us up, we were making bread. And I'd never made bread before. I'd never even touched raw or dough or anything like that. I was very
Yes.
green. And there's something really magical about it. And there's something really magical actually about watching somebody cook something that you believe and think and probably can make it home yourself as well. And I'm starving after listening to your recipe ideas. Oh my God, that chicken is amazing.
Dear listeners, do not listen to this podcast if you are hungry.
But you know, buy Cherie's book and make it immediately.
But yes, but I was thinking that the other morning making pancakes, right, and making the box tea and stuff, because I thought they're such easy recipes, and especially if people are underconfident or if people don't have time, putting a few ingredients together and put them into a pan and having that homemade food, I think is just brilliant. Like you look at a loaf of bread and look how many ingredients are in that. And like it's wild altogether. And really knock up a few ingredients and make yourself a soda bread. And that's why I love lovely Barry Quinn from Portneau. I started following Barry when he had about 22,000 followers on Instagram, and now he's near 700,000. And I said to Andrew, look, if we, in this second book, if we're having voices and artisans, please can we have Barry Quinn? I said, because can I approach Barry and see if he wants to do it? And he says, well, yeah, Andrew, my husband's called Andy. It's very complicated at times. Making sure I get it right. I said to Andrew, listen, I think Barry would be great. And I spoke to Barry, and Barry was like, yeah, absolutely. So this was a couple of years ago. And I love his whole ethos about eating from the land, making stuff from scratch, how important it is for us to do that. And I think, and it doesn't have to be expensive either, because I'm very well aware that, a lot of people don't have budgets for expensive food, but good food does not have to be expensive.
In fact, it can be cheaper.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly that.
Yeah, it's lots of ways it comes down to confidence, having the confidence to know that you can take raw produce and turn it into a meal for your family. Once you have that confidence, you just need to do it 2 or 3 times and then look at beautiful books like yours and get inspiration, and then it can roll on from there. But it's having the confidence and the time.
That is exactly right. And this is why if I ever did like a proper YouTube channel, that's what I would want it to be, along those lines, teaching people, not preaching at people, but teaching people and showing people how it can be done quite straightforward and quite easily. I think when you demonstrate, you don't quite realize, you think that everyone knows the same as you do, but you have to go through every wee thing, because they don't. And like last night, even people said, and these are like people who are cooks, people who work in the foodie world and stuff. So it was great to hear them say, that was a really lovely tip, loved that, we'll use that, or I never thought of that. Because I'd be the same. Every day is a school day, isn't it? Like we're all learning every day, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah. And most things are easy when you're used to doing them. But for other people, when you just point them out, it's incredible. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing your demo at the festival.
Oh,
And also, Barry's going to be there.
yeah.
So we're going to have a great time.
That's brilliant.
Barry's doing a dinner, actually. Barry's doing a dinner, and he's bringing his band.
Brilliant. Yes, of course. Yes.
Yes, he's bringing his band. It's got a really quacker's name, something like a Duck Street Jam Band. Yeah. And we actually have interviewed Barry as well for this podcast series. So check that out after you're finished listening to this
I
one, of
will.
course. Yeah. What else are you excited about coming to Ballymaloe about?
But you know what? The last time I was at Ballymaloe was about 22 years ago. Can you
Wow.
believe that? I
So
had
when you were a
all
teenager.
oh, absolutely. I said to my husband I'd always wanted to go to Ballymaloe because obviously I'd heard loads about it by this point, you see. And he said, right, okay, well, we'll go one day. So anyway, he said to me one Thursday, he came home from work and he said, right, we're going away tomorrow. And I says, where are we going? And he says, can't tell you, it's a surprise. And I said, right, well, do we need like an overnight bag? He says, yes. And he says, and if I were you, a dress for cold weather. I says, right. So anyway, packed a wee case and we went, the flight was to Shannon and I thought, oh, we're going to Ballymaloe, we're going to Ballymaloe, we're going to Ballymaloe. And I was that excited, right? So we go there and we go up to the house and that beautiful fan light that I'd seen above the door and I'm getting so excited. And we walk in and see the you know, the sweets trolley or whatever you guys call it, and I was like, it's all coming real, so real, and I'm so excited. And then we see Jessica Fletcher. Well, that's not her real name. What's her name? Murder She Wrote.
Murder She Wrote. Was she a guest?
Ah, yes, yes, I saw her. And Andy says, well, we shouldn't stay here because everywhere she stays, someone gets murdered. I said, oh, grand, but grand. So anyway, then we go in and the music's playing and the and people are having Guinness and I says, oh, Andy, I says, I'm so excited. Thank you so much. Let's have a Guinness. Like, I love Guinness. So I took a mouthful of Guinness and I thought that doesn't taste right. And then we had no, it's not that at all. No. And Andy says it's lovely to me. It's really nice. So anyway, then we sat down to dinner and I had this beautiful, because I was so excited about eating off the land and all the fresh produce. And I ate my tomatoes and I said, something not right. I said, anyway, I was pregnant.
No,
I was
right. Oh, no.
5 weeks and 2 days pregnant.
Oh my
Not that anyone
goodness.
needs to really know that. Sorry, you might
Oh
need
my
to put that.
goodness.
But honestly, I was as gutted as a fish because I was so desperate to enjoy loved everything else, but I couldn't enjoy the food. Or the drink. I was so sick. So that's why I wasn't enjoying my
Well,
Guinness.
that is a very special memory to come back to this year
So
now.
I'm so excited about going back. I can't tell you. I am cock a hoop.
Yeah.
So our Harry's now almost 22. So there you go.
Will Andy be coming with you?
Andy's coming with me. Yes.
Ah, great stuff. Great
Yes,
stuff.
he is indeed.
Oh, fantastic. Ladies, I think we should probably kind of like start wrapping up our conversation now, but I've just really enjoyed hearing all the ins and outs of everything you've been up to and like what a colourful life. I'm actually really pumped to meet you and so many different people when we all gather together in May. Is there anything else that you want to kind of like pop in there before we finish up?
Look, I just want to say thank you because having the chance to come to Ballymaloe is so exciting for me. I have seen it on Instagram so many times. I've spoken to Matt Tebbit about it. He has, ranted and raved about it. And it's just lovely to be invited. And I feel so lucky. So thank you very much for having me. Honestly, I mean it.
Thank you for coming. I'm so excited to have you here. It's brilliant. Thank you.
Well, let's see how it all goes that weekend.
Oh yeah.
See you in May. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Bye.